All right. I miss a meeting and forget everything, right? I called this joint meeting of the Budget Committee and the Milwaukie Redevelopment Commission Budget Committee to order. The meeting is being held in person. The public is invited to watch live on the city's YouTube channel, which is Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits, or via Zoom using the link on the meeting webpage. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during the community comment time. Written comments may be submitted by email to finance@milwaukieoregon.gov. When it is time to make public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards and email inbox. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Translation services are also available in other languages. So we'll begin with introductions. I'm Leslie Schochner, Budget Committee Chair and Community Member, and I'll continue to my right.
Robert Massey, I'm the Milwaukie City Council.
William Johnson, Community Member. Adam Costerbody, Milwaukie City Councilor.
Mary Rose, Citizen Member.
Emma Sagor, City Manager.
Michael Osborne, Finance Director.
Sophie Sermon-Burton, Community Member.
Will Anderson, Milwaukie City Councilor.
Carrie Schumacher, Citizen Member.
Lisa Beatty, City Council Mayor. Okay, the next order of business is approval of the Budget Committee members' minutes. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to the Budget Committee minutes from the meeting on August 11th, 2025? No? Okay. If there are no edits, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 11th, 2025.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, the minutes it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those say nay. The motion carries. The next order of business is the approval of the MRC Budget Committee minutes. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to those minutes? Yes, no. I don't hear anything. If there are no edits, I will entertain a motion to adopt these minutes as well.
I move to moved. I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now it's time, we will open the minute to any community comments of community members that would like to discuss any city business with this committee. Those wishing to speak that are not at City Hall, please email finance@milwaukieoregon.gov or raise your hand in Zoom by dialing *9. Or you can also submit a written comment in the Zoom chat to indicate you would like to speak. We have no comments.
No
Okay.
comments and no one on Zoom who wants to comment. Councilor Stavenjord has joined by Zoom to listen in.
Oh, okay. Welcome. So our next order of business is the city manager update.
Thank you very much, Chair Schochner. You want to go to the next slide? So we're excited to be here with you tonight for our Budget Committee. I'll give just a quick preview of the agenda before I launch into my CM update. I'm going to give some updates from the last quarter from around the city. Then Michael's going to talk about our FY25 fiscal year review, unaudited, but he'll also give a preview of the audit, which kicked off today. We had auditors on site today. We'll talk also a little bit about, you probably noticed there's no quarterly in your packet, and we'll explain why and give some quarter one FY26 updates as well. And then one thing we're super excited to do tonight is kick off the next budget process. We'll make this joke several times, but it's not lost on Michael and I. The last time we kicked off a budget process, he and I were here in February, the year the budget was due, and we both looked like deers in headlights because we sort of were thrown into it after the unexpected departure of a finance director. We are so well planned this time, and we are very excited to kind of talk you through what that plan is. Then we also,
It's like 5 months, right?
then we also have a budget adjustment request that we would like to bring to you for consideration tonight, and we will aim to adjourn by 7. Next slide. So just a few updates from around the city, and poor Mike has to deal with me. I like to do my bullets one at a time. So it's been another busy quarter on the hiring and personnel front. We are really excited that we have had a cascade of promotions made possible by promotions. So we promoted our planning manager, Laura Weigel, into the community development director position after a competitive recruitment process. Laura was definitely top of the field and an excellent new CD director for us. Then we recruited again for our planning manager, and our senior planner, Vera Coleus, was again top of the crop in that applicant pool. So she is now our planning manager. We were able to also then promote a senior planner, Ryan Dyer, who was an associate planner. And we're now actively recruiting for an associate planner to fill his shoes. We also have promoted Harmony Drake to be our new development services coordinator. This is a position that we created through our reorg and that you guys approved last time. And then just some new hires of totally vacant positions, a teen librarian, a new emergency management and resilience coordinator, new urban forester, and then the new assistant planner. Actually, that was another vacancy we were filling. So lots of hiring going on. We're really excited about it. We also are going to be, if you watch council meetings with bated breath, we're going to be bringing lots of these folks to meet the council, the folks who are new faces. So that'll come in the next few meetings. It's also been a busy quarter for making progress in our council goals. I'm not going to dive too deep tonight, but just a reminder for Budget Committee, council has 3 adopted goals: economic development, parks and green space, and affordability. We've made progress in all 3 in the last quarter. We update our goal action plans and post those on the website. And once a month, we dedicate most of a work session to a goal. So great ways to stay involved and engaged. And we'll talk as we go through our budget updates about where you're seeing goal work hit. It was a big summer for capital improvements, lots of miles of roads paved or slurry sealed, lots of progress on our big capital projects like our Washington Street project, our Meek Street stormwater project. So really, really busy construction season in Milwaukee. We thank everyone for their patience, but really exciting infrastructure upgrades have hit the roads and our pipes. It's also outside of things that the city itself is building. There's a lot opening around town that we're really excited to see. Just in the last week, all of these things had ribbon cuttings. So last Monday, we helped cut the ribbon with Clackamas County on their stabilization center on McBride. This will provide both a 23-hour stabilization center for folks experiencing acute behavioral health crises, as well as some transitional bed space for folks transitioning into more stable housing. The Hillside Building C, but it's the first of the new buildings, had its ribbon cutting, or its open house, I should say, last Thursday. So they're starting to take people moving in, and construction continuing on that next phase. So it's wonderful to see. Short Stack Milwaukie is a cottage cluster development that the city helped fund through our construction excise tax. That's 15 cottages, home ownership, $250,000 each, made possible through a community land trust with Proud Ground. Those are off Harvey Street. I got to tour those on, I can't remember the day. It was a very busy week, but they are beautiful. And then finally, over the weekend, Bonaventure, the senior living community over by North Clackamas Park, also cut the ribbon. So really exciting week in Milwaukee for projects.
I would add that the governor was a guest and speaker at the Stabilization Center opening.
Thank you very much, Councilor Massey.
So on Hillside, how many units open and how many are still being worked on?
There are 100 units in Building C. Building A and B, I think, add another 175. So in total, it's 275 units in this first phase. And then they're already getting ready to start the next phase, which will be another couple hundred units. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We never slow down in Milwaukee. December, when everyone else is kind of hibernating, is our busy season, and I hope to see you all at some really fun events. December 6th is the Umbrella Parade and tree lighting. December 13th is Arbor Day. December 20th is Solstice and the Christmas ships viewing, and then we'll bring in the new year on New Year's Eve. And my last update that is kind of cut off there is I will be going on a parental leave at the end of the year, which is why we were so eager to get our budget strategy in motion, and I'm feeling really good about it. Joseph Brelio, my assistant city manager, will be acting city manager while I'm out. And if anyone wants to join the betting pool of how many of those winter events I can make it to before I go into labor, I welcome your thoughts. I'm planning to make a full sweep. I want to go tubing in the new year and then go straight to the hospital. So January 1st. So it'd be poetic. Okay, next slide.
So for follow-up meetings from last meeting, we have one on franchise fees, which I was going to address in my quarterly going forward. That's the only thing that we found. So unless anybody has any questions they have, we'll move on. All right, so fiscal year 25 unaudited review. We went through last meeting in August and went through the yearly, quarterly for the past year. We have some updates to make from that, and I'll get into that. But as Emma said, today our audit kicked off. Members from Baker Tilly, formerly Moss Adams, came out on site. They're here for 2 weeks doing field work for our audit. This year is the first time we're doing a single audit in the last 5 years. A single audit is called a CFA, Schedule of Expenditure of Federal Awards. And what that means is that we went over the threshold of $750,000 for federal funds that triggers a single audit. I've always heard the term a single audit is an audit on steroids, meaning that they just they do a complete separate audit where they go in and look at all of your items that have federal funds, and it's a smaller sample size. So they're just, they scrutinize it more, they look at it more because there's federal funds in there, and they want to make sure that those all went to where they were supposed to have gone. I'm using this as just an opportunity, as this is the why, is everyone comes in and talks about, hey, can we get a grant for this? Can we get a grant for that? From my end, it's important that we track all this because it takes a lot of staff time to track it. It takes a lot of preparing for the audit. And with that comes an additional expense to the auditors. So it's just something that we keep on our radar, and that's why we're very conscious of the grants that are coming into the city. Next year, the threshold is moving up to $1 million. So we get a little more leeway in this. But this is the first time in the last 5 years that we've had a single audit. So I just wanted to make everyone aware. Is there any questions?
You call it a single audit, but it's an audit on top of our normal audit?
Correct.
Okay.
We have our normal audit for the general fund and the city and then the MRC, and this is another audit on top of it.
Confusing nomenclature though.
Our audit timeline, as I was discussing, they're out between now and the 21st doing on-site field work. So Judy, Matt, and all the staff are getting a lot of questions all day, just as they put together the work papers and just explaining it to auditors. So they're out here for 2 weeks. Then in early December becomes the partner review. Once all their field work and everything is wrapped up, then it goes up to the partners of Baker Tilly to look at, review. In late December, they're going to issue the financials and we'll issue the ACFR. For those of you that were here 2 years ago, this process went on till March, and I can't stress and thank enough the audit committee that gave us the leeway during that time to, as we were working things out, getting into March. It is just such a smoother process with Baker Tilly and with Matt and Judy here. They have worked a ton. And I think the nice thing that I have is Matt was in here for a couple hours on Saturday, but I remember preparing for the audit, like I would be in here both days. And I think that's just kind of a testament as to, you know, we have a good relationship with Baker Tilly. We know what they're looking for, and we have all our work papers and schedules together and alignment ready to go. So I'm just thankful for the staff that we have that is able to put that together and make such a big improvement. In January, once we issue the financials, we're going to go to the audit committee again to present those. The 5 members of the audit committee are then allowed to speak directly to Ashley. She presents to them the audit findings, and if they have any questions, they can ask her. And then in February, we're going to come and meet with council again and give them the opportunity as well to speak directly to the audit staff.
Is there a formal deadline for that? In other words, if we were doing this in March last year, were we supposed to have done it by a particular time?
We're supposed to have it done by 12/31 each year. We filed extensions, which is fine as long as you're letting the state government know. But last year we didn't file any extensions. We got it done by 12/31. This year we'll have it done by 12/31, file no extensions. I just wanted to mention, I met with the head partner today. And going back to that single audit, that piece, because of the government shutdown, you have to take that to the feds to get them to sign off on it. And because there's a shutdown and a backlog, that small piece is going to go out a couple months into March, February. We're able to issue, they're able to issue, and we're able to do all of our stuff, but just dotting the T's and crossing the I's is going to be a little harder because of the shutdown. Any other questions? A Socrata update. If some of you remember, we have a software that the city purchased, which is, we're modeling after Westland, which it's a website that you can go through and get pretty real time, it's not instantaneous, but pretty close to real time data. And we were told that that was going to be online in August. It wasn't, and I can get into that a little bit more. The reason that we don't have a quarterly now is it takes a lot of staff time to put that together. And we focus that on the audit and the single audit and budget as we're getting ramped up for this. And we really thought that we were going to have this online, and it's not. Part of the challenges that we've come up to was, the first thing is, when we're taking the data out of our ERP accounting software, we're taking that data out, and in order to put it online, we have to make sure that it's safe and goes through safe, secure process in order to take the data out of our system, and also having the data come into the system to pull the data from. So in September, our IT manager, Joe Gardner, met with them to figure out what the secure parameters were for that so that both systems can talk in a safe environment. They were able to work that out after a couple weeks. Right now, we've been told that mid-November is the date to go. We haven't had much feedback from them, and we're trying to reach out to them and saying, hey, are we still going to hit this deadline? Speaking with other finance directors who use this company, they have a track record of being able to sell great, but to deliver poorly. So I'm not surprised. I still have faith in it. We've given them a December 31st deadline, and I have hope that they can hit that. But if they can't, we might have to pivot and do something else. Maybe we go back to a condensed down quarterly or something. But I still think it's going to work, and we're still walking it through. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but that's the story of where it is.
Michael, so were you expecting the Socrata rollout to be able to sort of self-populate a quarterly report? Is that what you were,
Correct.
what your hopes were? Okay. When did this implementation start?
So we reached out to them, I think in June, and they gave us a timetable of August. And then they pushed that timetable out based on staffing issues to later into October and now into November. I think the encouraging thing is that we got the data piece worked out and IT and their people agree. It's just now getting them to turn it on. Which I don't think sounds hard, but I don't want to speak for them.
So West Lynn didn't warn us that there were delivery issues with them?
Tiger, so I talked to Tiger and, they went through this process and not to get too much into it, but there's different pieces. They have a web version and a non-web version, and they really want to sell their web version. And they're like, if you go to this, we can get it going quick. And Tiger kind of pivoted away from that. West Lynn is smaller like us, and they said, give it a little time and it will work. And that's kind of what I'm hoping, but I'm also hoping to hold them to deadlines so that it brings a little bit, lights a fire under them.
Yeah, there's two things I'd add. One is, we have contract terms. If they can't meet their contract terms, we'll be seeking repayment for the contract because we're stewards of taxpayer dollars. So that's where this deadline and the kind of contract management piece comes in. The second is, while we had hopes that this, and I think will be a better alternative for a more efficient and transparent quarterly report, we have prepared in the next coming slides, quarterly information, and we can, of course, make sure that this is published on the website as the quarterlies would be, so that information is still available to the public, even while we wait for Socrata.
And the FY, we're gonna go through it a little bit here, but the FY 25, those are all, what I'm gonna show, those are all gonna be in the ACFR and printed out, which is, the quarter one is going to be a lot less than you guys normally see, but it's on a summary level of the fund balances. And if you wanted, it's the first quarter of the year. If you have questions or wondering about things, email me and ask me and I can let you know. But it's not to the same level that you've had in the past.
So my understanding is if we get Socrata to work, not only do you have the data for the quarterly reports in a much more efficient way, but everybody can actually go online and see in between the quarterlies what things look like.
Yep.
So if we don't get that, we will only have the quarterlies in terms of how things are going, and we will have more summary data than we currently have.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm wondering if there is a plan for highlighting more issues that won't necessarily show up in the summary, but may be of
Right.
Concern
Yes.
if we don't have this.
And I would say, Leslie, if Socrata doesn't meet this deadline, we'll produce the full quarterly report by February with the full data. We've got the template. Mike's right. It's a more, I think it's a less efficient process for Judy to go update every single one of those work papers and
Right.
produce it. But we will absolutely do it to make sure you get provided that full level of detail in February. My hope is that it will be slick and digital and much easier for us and you, but if not, you'll have the PDF.
So I guess I have just one more question. Are there interim completion points that would say, well, we're 3/4 done, maybe we won't meet December 31, but we can meet January 31? I mean, it seems to me like the presentation of data is really good. And so is there some, I mean, it's not just all or nothing, or are you?
I mean, I think we're at the final stages.
Okay.
The data piece was a big piece and we crossed that hurdle. And so that gave me confidence in it. It's just now getting the software on the website.
And once that happens, it just runs itself and we don't have to count on the company
It's
for a
not
lot of
instantaneous,
updates
but
or
it's
stuff.
pretty close. And it's not relying on Tyler at all. It's the mechanism going back and forth is set. If you go to Westland's website, you can kind of see what we're talking about, but it changes as they're posting things. So it's available for all you and the public.
What I heard you saying was, are there ongoing issues related to software updates, not current data updates?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess yeah.
That's what I was thinking you were saying.
Well, and my question was, how much are we gonna need the company in the future? Like, once it's running, are we we don't have to worry about their less than stellar, response time, or is it gonna be an
We were
ongoing?
sold that once they get it going, it's going,
runs.
it's running.
Okay.
Well, going back to what I think I heard from you, Mayor, is I think that your question was, is there an intermediate, action level between us and publishing by the Socrata Corporation? And so I think the answer is no. Once it's up and running, when they post something, it's going. But you're not going to take Socrata out of this completely because they're going to be continually updating, putting in bug fixes, security fixes, and that kind of thing.
That's
So
the update.
that's the update process rather than the posting process.
We're all.
Would that be accurate?
I believe that's accurate, yeah.
Oh, Carrie?
So you mentioned that there was a software version and online version, but I wasn't clear which option that we had gone with.
I think let me see if I got this right, Mike. So we use Tyler Technologies Encode for our, as our ERP. We use currently like a server-based version of that. They desperately want us to move to their cloud-based version of that. We don't have the money to move to their cloud-based version of that. And so I think Socrata would also like us to move to Tyler's cloud-based version because it's an easier integration for them. But and this is connected to our next budget, in the next biennium, we won't be moving to the cloud-based Tyler system. Is that accurate?
100%.
Maybe potentially in the future, I think we'd love to be moving off servers, but it's not the highest priority for our software improvement needs right now.
And I would add that one disconnect is salesmen like to sell and they say, oh yeah, we can give you this, we can deliver these targets, but then following through on that can be a challenge. And I believe they can do it. I think that we were just sold it was going to be a lot easier and quicker than it is. All right. With that, I wanted to go through and kind of update some FY25 ending fund balances. Sorry, I'm looking at this, which it's a lot better to look at on here. But so since we last met, the accounting staff has gone through and added in our prepaids, our accruals, and our year-end journal entries. So this is unaudited, but it's pretty close to what our final ACFR will be, depending on if our auditors have any other changes that they want to make. At the end of the first year of the biennium for our general fund, we were a little over, we weren't over budget, but we'd spent more than we received in. Part of that is we were on budget target, but with the increasing cost of goods sold and COLAs and inflation, the cost is hitting the city. So it's not as bad as what we thought budgeted, but we still dipped into our fund balance. For transportation fund, we had, as Emma was talking about, we had a lot of end of summer projects that were going on. Washington Street improvements, Ardenwald North, that ate into those transportation fund dollars. And then finally, for the stormwater fund, Meek Street and Washington Street were both huge projects that we had that had expenditures coming in. So All of the others are about kind of where we thought them to be. Is there any questions on just kind of the fund balance summary? I can get in a little bit more to general fund here going forward.
Well, so the transportation fund and the stormwater, we're over because we're over for the quarter, but we're not over for, I mean, we probably don't spend very much in the winter quarters.
Yep, this is the whole fiscal year. So this is fiscal year
Oh, this is the
25.
whole fiscal year.
This is
Oh,
last
okay.
fiscal year,
Okay.
and the issue is we've reduced our beginning balance for
Mhm.
this year.
But these are tracking with budget. So there's some where we expected to be spending into our fund balance versus others where we didn't.
General fund revenues, this one I feel proud about, and I say that because for what we budgeted, we came in above what we budgeted in revenue. And I think for other cities that are struggling and things, I think comparing ourselves around, this is something that I guess to be proud of, that we did a good job budgeting. I'm gonna hit on the next slide on franchise fees, but most everything else, fines and forfeitures, our business license permitting, our bank interest, all came in above what we budgeted for last year. So I think we did a really good job of budgeting and came in a little bit over. Some of that miscellaneous stuff is due to some miscellaneous receivables and things that we didn't really have budgeted and grants that came in. So I know that looks like a big dollar, but in the course of things, it's not too big. But overall, we came in at 107% of what we budgeted. So I feel good that we budgeted correctly in revenues. Going back to the last meeting, I believe the mayor had asked for how our 5-year franchise fees look in comparison to other cities and kind of how that forecast looked and how we were doing. You all did a right-of-way increase from 5% to 8% on PGE and Northwest Natural. Those you can see in the green have paid off. That's really solidified the franchise fees coming in. If you look overall, the trend from fiscal year 21 to 25, it's a nice sloping up slope, steady increase of revenue in 25. The benefits of the right-of-way increase come up. The one that is going down is the telecom, and Comcast is in two sections in here. There's one that's just regular Comcast, and then it's also embedded in the telecom fees. And that decreased because of the city of Beaverton lawsuit with them. I believe they were withholding right-of-way fees based on what was considered in the cloud and what was in the ground. Those revenues have decreased, but I believe overall the franchise fee is healthy. Considering again, talking to other people at finance directors at OGFOA, we're in a very good position compared to other cities. I did want to say too, I am meeting with a couple consultants next month to look for economical ways for if outside vendors can help us administer franchise fees. And when I say economical, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, does it pencil out for them? And at the end of the day, does it pencil out for us? So I'm going to sit down with them to see after they've gone, what their model is, what they can produce, and after their fees, does that interject more revenue to us?
So in effect, you would be looking for somebody to be our collector for us, so we wouldn't have to be monitoring whether or not it was coming in.
Correct.
And we used to have a person on staff who did that. That position was removed several years ago. One of those that person now has a kind of private company doing this. So again, I think Mike's right to look at it from this economical standpoint of is it worth it? We are not alone in seeing that trend with telecoms. Is the increase we might see from contracting or adding staff capacity worth what we will see in a return, is the question.
But I think overall, we can see the increase of, where we were in previous years and where we're going up, trending up. General fund expenditures, again, we're in year one of the biennium, so we're halfway through. These are viewed as a whole of the 2-year cycle. So being over budget in some of these isn't a ding against us because we're at the halfway point, but it's something that we're gonna use to monitor and track. Facilities, fleet, and IT are the big ones trending on over budget. For IT, subscription costs is going up, unfortunately. We're trying to lock into longer term subscriptions in order to hold those costs down. But the market is, it's hard to do that. Facilities and fleet, inflation, cost of goods, is going up. So those things are trending up, and we're just gonna watch them in year 2 and see if we can make, if we can move projects out or if we can find more creative ways to get things done.
So, on the information, technology,
IT,
or actually, I think the facilities management, when I was looking at the detailed schedules that we got, the note commented on contracts that came up in the first quarter, but this is the last quarter, so I'm just gonna suggest that written document be updated to reflect what you just said.
I also want to point out that overall total expenditures are 98% of budget. So we over budgeted or we came in above what we budgeted for in revenue. And we're coming in really close to what we're budgeting for in general fund expenditures. And we're watching that, but I just want to make you all aware that it's pretty close. Finally, general fund expenditures by type. This is just kind of showing by personnel services, we spent 95%. M&S, we spent 93%. The capital outlay, that is skewed because we did a lot of park stuff that came through in last year. There's ARPA funds and grants and things like that that have come in kind of to offset part of that. So it's not as bad as that shows, but debt service and everything, we came in a little bit higher than where we were at or what we budgeted. Any questions? Okay, really quick, I wanted to go over an MRC budget update too. We made these a joint meeting together so we could talk about MRC budget and the city budget all in one meeting.
We're gonna do that going forward. It's just more efficient. And Scott tells me it's totally okay. We noticed them as both.
The MRC has a healthy budget. So the property taxes, you can see came in at 125% of what we had budgeted. That's good. The investment earnings, that is coming to an end. The interest rates are going down and we're not going to see returns like that in the future. The thing I like to point you out to is under expenditures where it says business grants, the M&S, we gave out 540,000 last fiscal year for business grants. I know that Joseph and Sierra have been working hard on that. So overall, the beginning fund balance was at 7.4 million. At the end of the day, we have 7.8 million. The MRC, I know that they have a lot of plans going forward, but it's a healthy fund.
And I'll just jump in there. So we did have a good budget adjustment last quarter, if you'll remember, to authorize a reallocation of some capital budget so that we could continue to provide business grants. Because what you can see here is in that first year of the biennium, we almost spent the whole allocation for business grants because demand for those grants was just so high and continues to be high. So this was from June 30. We've actually issued several more since then, which is great, and we appreciate the additional appropriation. I do just want to, for transparency, share that as we opened for more business grants, we've just a reminder, those grants are typically $25,000 for a storefront or a tenant improvement, and if it's both, kind of up to $50,000. We have received a large grant proposal that is 8 storefronts asking for the full 50 for both tenant and storefront. Altogether, that is a very large single grant that exceeds my signing authority. So we will be calling a meeting of the MRCAC, which is the MRC Advisory Committee. They'll meet in a couple of weeks to review that application. And then the MRC, which is another name for our city council, when they meet as the Redevelopment Commission, they'll meet on December 2nd to review that application. Because again, since that exceeds both the executive director of the MRC, Joseph, and my own signing authority, we need council's blessing. It also is, I think, pushing a little bit of sort of the original bounds of what the grant program looked like. And so we would like to discuss with the MRC if that is a grant proposal you'd like us to consider in that shape and form or not. So just wanted to give that heads up. So that'll be the MRCAC, I believe will meet the week of Thanksgiving. I'm sorry that I don't know the exact date. And the MRC will meet December 2nd to review that application.
So are the 8 storefronts contiguous? with
They are. So it's one building downtown with a very cool proposal and a lot of tenants lined up. And I think could be a really exciting project to see happen. But it is all packaged together, a really large grant proposal. So
And can I just clarify?
you can put your microphone on, Council President.
It's on.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I saw the one
It's always
next to
on.
you.
But I have 2 just in case. But if all 8 of these or if these had been 8 separate grants, they would have been issued. The question is just like the packaging in one grant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so for full transparency and clarification with the MRC that this follows the spirit of the grant program, we wanted to bring it to the MRC for full consideration.
But the bottom line there is $400,000.
You got it. Good quick math. 8 times 50.
All right, moving forward to FY26 Q1. Yes, this is a lot less data than we're used to. But I just wanted to give a summary on where we are.
I'm so sorry. Can we go back to the MRC? Just one thing I didn't understand. The capital outlay, the difference there. I know you mentioned the transfers, but can you just explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we budgeted a significant amount in capital this biennium for the Main Street CIP project. And just for a variety of reasons, that is delayed. Will still happen and will be a large project in our next biennial CIP, but we realized we're not going to be able to deliver that. So we have spent some capital on various projects that are in the URA, but that's why we were able, you see a 2.4 million underspend in FY25, and that's why we asked for the reallocation to the business grants, which you approved last time.
Right, thanks for connecting the dots.
No problem.
All right, moving forward to summary of Q1 of 26. I just wanted to point out too that the city received a majority of its funding in Q2, December, in the form of property taxes. So we're getting ready to receive that in the next couple weeks. So when it's common that our expenditures way outpace our revenues in Q1 for that reason. Transportation funds was high due to the end of summer projects that we had. An update for the MRC, they also gave out in the first quarter another 215,000 in grants. So at the end of September, their fund balance was 7.7 million. And I know that this is high levels, so if you have any other questions, I can answer or look into you. But I just wanted to give you a summary.
I have a question, but it's not about this per se. Do you have a sense, I mean, it seems like last year, the property tax revenue came in higher than budgeted. Do you have a sense of that is gonna repeat?
I have a sense that it's gonna be a little bit higher. I think we normally do 3%, and I think we did 3.5% this year. For general fund, for MRC, it's been a lot healthier with all the building downtown. I don't know what that would be, but I think we're on pace for what we budgeted for.
I agree. I don't, and we'll get a little bit into our forecast projections in the next budget, in the next section of our agenda, but just looking at kind of how we're seeing still a lot of building activity, but it's a lot on the middle housing scale or the redevelopment scale, rather than, there's no more big 7 acres developments that we're seeing pop up. There's a few large ones kind of out on Monroe and various places, but I think we'll probably, through some population growth and unit growth, still exceed that 3%, but I think it's gonna taper. I think you see the market slowing in terms of large scale residential development.
All right, with that, we'll get into the budget kickoff.
All righty, next slide, Mike. So again, as I kind of mentioned earlier, Mike and I like to joke, the planning for this budget actually started last budget. There's, baby Emma and baby Mike in May 2024. That was the second meeting under our belt when we were kind of wearing our new hats. But we wanted to kind of remind you, when we were adopting this biennial budget, we told you then that we needed to do some stabilization. This was going to be the biennium of finding stability. And what that looked like was needing to stabilize our foundation, institutionalize the progress we've made, and still be very goal focused, but advance those goals very strategically. And the following quarter, right after we adopted the budget, we came to you and said, we're making good on our promise. Here's our financial stability strategy. It has 3 parts: stabilize our costs, maximize our existing revenue, and find new revenue streams. Next slide. So we want to give you kind of a recap of what you all have done in the last biennium. Click. So on the stabilized cost front, we adopted a really conservative budget last time. My predecessor, Anne, her budget message was hold the line. Wherever possible, hold the line, which felt like a cut in a lot of places, because if you're not expanding your materials and services, and we know inflation is going up, that actually feels like a material reduction. It also was a total reframe in how we make decisions. So, Michael talked about how we're still trying to rein in various things on the IT and facility side, but we really have completely reoriented our philosophy about how we do subscriptions, how we sign up for contracts and various softwares to be really frugal. And we've changed our philosophy on capital budgeting. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. On the maximizing revenue stream side, again, this I have to give a lot of appreciation to you all. And as Michael said, I think this is a place where Milwaukie has outperformed a lot of our neighboring communities, and because of the steps you've taken. So maximizing the right-of-way license revenue at the beginning of the last biennium, and with your help and approval, making smarter use of our urban renewal dollars and really utilizing urban renewal whenever we can for investments in the URA has been a great way to maximize those existing revenues. And then finally, again, major appreciation from Michael and I. You guys sat through lots of conversations and multi-criterion analyses that we put together, and have backed some new revenue opportunities, including our public safety fee that was passed back in August and will be implemented this month on utility bills, credit card or payment card transaction fees to cover the costs there. And what we're hoping to implement next summer is our red light and speed on green camera program to both, yes, capture some revenues, but more importantly, make our roads safer.
Some kudos to all of us that when I was down at OGFOA last week, they had a course on new revenue strategies and thinking about how to plan them. And they had a consultant came in that kind of walked cities through this that haven't even started the process. And ours, I thought, was better than the consultants. Like, we really went through the weeds and everything. And I think that's kudos to Emma for kind of seeing that vision. But Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
They asked for our spreadsheet, so we're famous now.
I just wanted to know, have we started with the credit card fees?
That has also been a bit of an implementation, I think we were planning to start at the end, in December. It's just again about getting all our software systems to talk to each other and how is that fee gonna be tacked on. So those were I'm sorry, Councilor Matthew.
So, it's on a related note, but as I remember, the Public Works Director has talked about using a consultant to, there seems to be a question mark, on some of the services that, Public Works provides. And it's sort of, the three things of, sewage and water and stormwater.
Yeah.
And I think there seems to be maybe a bigger question mark about stormwater. Are we charging enough?
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that he was talking about bringing in a consultant to do that, but wouldn't that fit into maximizing the revenue?
Absolutely.
And so I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but hopefully this carries forward.
Absolutely. We're not done with our stability strategy. It's a great point. On our affordability goal action plan, actually, I believe it's in either this quarter or next quarter, we have on our utility billers plate to make sure our up-to-date impervious surface data is implemented into our billing system. So I think in terms of stormwater, we actually don't even need the consultant. We've got the data. It's just about the implementing it into the system. I glossed over the amazing work our utility billing technician, Amy Francis, is doing to modernize and audit, frankly, our UB system to make sure we are capturing significant revenue. That last slide really focused on general fund stability, but all across our utility funds, we are continuing to work on stabilizing.
Robert, I just want to say that at the CLAC meeting that we had last Monday, we were discussing that issue and Peter said that in regards to the impermeability thing, that they are working on a methodology that will go in and recalculate. And as I understood it, a lot of it comes from ground being covered over that wasn't covered over originally.
Mhm.
But yeah, right. So I think that it is in process of being addressed.
Exactly.
And then the other thing which is not related to your question, but is related to the stormwater fund, is the fact that which we discussed at that meeting, which is that we only have one staff person that's trying to maintain all of the stormwater facilities, which is sort of.
You'll hear about that tonight. Thanks for teeing me up, Leslie.
Okay, I'm waiting.
No, I love it. I love it. So the financial stability strategy was sort of our main budget homework, you could say, for the last biennium. But I think there's other elements that maybe weren't necessarily a budget project that have become really important inputs to our next biennium budget soup making. The first is our organizational assessment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the budget adjustment, but this was our kind of org structure cleanup and looking under the hood at, just like what Leslie said, where have we added a lot of services or expectations and maybe not added commensurate resources and staffing. The second, I want to make sure you're all aware of, back when we finished bargaining our contract with AFSCME, who's our largest labor union. We have two labor unions, Milwaukie Police Association and AFSCME. We agreed to do a salary study, comprehensive salary study. So that looks at every AFSCME represented position, looks at market comps, and looks at internal pay equity. It's a big ask. And when we decided to do it with AFSCME, we also agreed to do it for all of our non-represented positions as well. A separate study had been done on the police union as part of their bargaining. That took about 8 months of work on our HR department, but we completed that last month and shared that data with the union. That doesn't mean we shared recommendations or we shared adjustments. We just shared the data, which I think actually puts us in a very good position going into bargaining, which we will start, and I'll talk more about that in a second, but this coming winter, spring, because we're all working from a common playbook of data. And then new council goals. So that's another piece of homework. You know, when we adopted our last budget, our goals were still climate equity in parks. We've taken some real steps to institutionalize climate and equity. Now we have some new goals that we're trying to advance that will last this whole biennium. Thank you, council, for adopting 3-year goals. So that really gives us a really good foundation for budget development. Okay, so Michael talked a little bit about some revenue pieces. And here we are, the fall before our new budget needs to be adopted. So Michael has been deep in forecast land, and he has done an exceptional job looking into the crystal ball and seeing what do we think the future might look like. He talked a little bit about this already, so I won't, beat a dead horse, but we've got some revenues that are trending up. Public safety fee, that's revenue, general fund revenue you didn't have before. Right-of-way license fees, those are going up thanks to the bump. And then property taxes continue to overperform and trend up. We also have some revenues trending down. We and every other city in Oregon, state revenue sharing, telecom. Interest income's a weird one. We never want to bank on it. So we always want to assume it's going to tank. Some city fees. So you may remember we eliminated library fines, which I think was absolutely the right policy move, but that is going to be a slight reduction in revenue. And we're not selling anything big, no city halls on the market. So, but looking at all of that, and Michael and I we're a good yin and yang. I'm the dreamer, he's the fiscal conservative. So Mike really looks at things through a glass half empty lens. His worst case scenario projections are still a 3 to 5% general fund revenue growth rate over the biennium. So I'm sorry, this is kind of hard to read, but I'll try to kind of walk you through it. You probably got so sick of Michael and I, again, when we were deer in headlights, coming to you last budget and saying, we're going off a cliff. We're going off a cliff. We're so worried our general fund's going to go off a cliff because it was turning red very soon into or right after the biennium. So Michael took that very modest 3 to 5% revenue growth assumption. That's your very first row there. That's what you see forecasted out for 5 years. The next few rows, transfers and expenditures, I gotta say, this is subject to change, guys. This is our forecast as of November 10th. We're working with our teams right now to dial in their budgets. So everything in those middle rows is gonna get kind of squishy. But what this shows you, this is Michael's and my worst case scenario, okay? This is everything in the kitchen sink. I'm not saying we should spend that much on forecasted expenditures, but I'm saying that's if I just threw it all into the hopper. So modest revenue growth and super aggressive expenditure growth. The good news, if you look at that ending balance line, is it is in the black. And I just want to take a second and say thank you again, because this really is the fruit of the revenue, the financial stability moves you helped us make. Had you not done the right-of-way license fee increase or the public safety fee increase, I do not believe you would be seeing that stay in the black. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses. You look at the over-under reserve row, that's the bottom row. We do in FY29 dip under that 25% policy reserve. Sorry, FY20. You're right, we dip under, I should have made that red. We dip under in FY28. You can adopt a budget with that, but it makes us have heart palpitations because you want your fund to stay healthy and to not violate your own policies. So this is going to keep getting fine-tuned. As we work with our teams to right-size their expenditures, it'll get fine-tuned. As we bargain with our union and our personnel costs come into terms, that will get fine-tuned. So this will kind of the crystal ball will keep getting clearer. But I think the takeaway we wanted to share with you today as we sort of kick off this budget process is the revenue moves you've made have helped us stay on track. We still have some structural challenges. We're still spending more than we're bringing in, us and every other city in Oregon, but that's still a problem. So I do think it's important for you all to know, I still think 3 to 5 years from now, there will likely be the need for this group to consider a larger revenue move, whether that is a property tax increase or something else that's a more significant move. I do not believe that is needed in this biennium to balance our budget and to provide the services you want to provide. I've got more, but this is a lot. Anyone have questions?
Well, I understand your point that, those would not be problems in the next biennium, but the decisions for those follow-on years would have to be considered and brought to the community during that same time period.
They would.
Because this is something that's, gonna take some socialization.
They absolutely would. That's a great point, Counselor. I think that, again, if those ending balance numbers were starting to tip into the red even sooner, I'd tell you, start talking about it now. I think since they stay black for 5 years, I think you definitely want to keep monitoring it and especially keep thinking about any services we're adding to the city. But I take your point. You need to, anything like a property tax is going to be a multi-year process to discuss with the community. So sorry, just a reminder about microphones, guys. The Zoom cannot pick it up. So the ending balance stays black, stays in the positive, the whole 5-year forecast. It's the under policy reserves that you see turns negative in FY28.
And that's a city policy, not a state.
Not a state policy. We have a city policy that we want to reserve 25% of what we budget for general fund expenditures in our fund balance. William?
You said you're projecting a range of 3 to 5% revenue growth. What needs to happen for us to hit 5% as opposed to 3%?
Really good question.
I think some of the variables are business registration revenue, fines, forfeitures, things like that. Those are things that we can't really control that make a little bit of a difference. Property tax is pretty fixed, so that doesn't make that much. The franchise fee aspect right now is the biggest, has the biggest swing.
And we've tried to be conservative there too. As PGE and Northwest Naturals rates go up, we see more revenue, but we don't want to bank on that, especially at a time when we have an affordability goal. I think also we to be conservative, don't assume grants in this. So any grant revenue we receive to the general fund is great. That adds to that % of revenue growth. It's a really good question. Okay. That was the general fund. We spent a lot of time on the general fund. I just want to give you kind of a snapshot of our other funds and tell you in February is your meeting when you dive deep into capital world. And in doing so, you also dive deep into the utility funds and the utility rates that are going to be needed to support our capital program. So the good news here, and again, Peter's going to tell you a lot more in February, but the stormwater fund, the wastewater fund, SDC fund, and building fund, all very healthy. I don't want to promise today anything about rates, but I think when you hear me say healthy, think probably not a big rate increase, if any rate increase needed to sustain what we have planned in those funds. The water fund, also healthy and stable, but that's one where I think, you should prepare to see significant capital needs related to PFAS and other critical things. So that's one where the fund is stable, but to account for the capital work we're going to need to do, there may be some increases needed. We've been talking, obviously, through our affordability goal about ways that we can approach any increases in a way that minimizes any impact to ratepayers. CET fund, also stable, but this one I just want to note, we've got some significant funds obligated to some big projects. Council has authorized us to use up to $400,000 of CET funds for Sparrow. And has also approved that we use CET economic development money for some citywide grants. All great things. It just means it eats down that fund balance. So CET is one that you kind of need to wait for it to replenish before you start spending it again. Transportation fund, to council, this is probably old news. Actually, to budget committee or QUAC, you heard about this last week, but we are going to need to make some steps to stabilize transportation, or specifically stabilize SAFE. And we got council direction to kind of go with a moderate increase to SAFE rates that allow us to do a more right-sized and right-scaled SAFE program that allows for some pay-as-you-go style projects and programs. So that you will see kind of a larger than usual increase. That's what we're projecting for safe rates, but keeping it pretty modest and stabilizing that overall fund. Last thing just to note here, and this is us showing that we can be really receptive to feedback. One thing we've heard is, we collect tree fees based on our tree code and tree permits, and those go into a tree fund, but really that's been a part of our general fund. And I think for transparency with the community, folks would like us to be tracking that as a distinct fund. Yes, that adds some accounting burden, but I think it's very important for really showing people where those dollars come in and where they go. So we'll be in the new budget having a tree fund. Similarly for the art fund. So we've been doing art budgeting kind of in the city manager's office, but it's hard for folks to see, if say we want to save up a lot of money for a big art installation, but that crosses over a fiscal year, over a biennium, it's been challenging. So we're going to create an art fund as well. They'll be very small funds, but they will be more transparent.
In the policy on distribution of those funds, will that change from what's happening now? Are those committees the body that decides? And is there a written policy?
It's a great question, Leslie, that I don't have a really firm answer for now, and I think we'll explore that through the budget process. I think right now the tree board and the arts committee do weigh in on that, but this will allow it, I think, again, to be even more transparent how those decisions and their influence affects actual expenditure. When it's all hidden in the general fund, Judy knows, because Judy's amazing and knows how everything is coded, but it's harder, I think, for the public to see how those dollars get spent.
So as I understand that what you just said, the money is currently going into the general fund, but it is in some way being reserved for those projects already.
Yes,
And this would just make that
more
clearer.
transparent, yes. Judy also clarifies for me that the tree money is currently going to the stormwater fund, not the general fund. Thank you, Judy. See, Judy knows everything. Okay, next slide. Okay, so, I told you Ann's budget message for the last budget was hold the line. Here's my budget message for this next budget. The first is our forecast has improved. Thank you to the actions you've taken this biennium, but we have to continue being strategic and responsible. The piggy bank is not open. It's not like come one, come all, spend everything. Next. So we're going to focus on ensuring continued stability through modest, prioritized investments. Click. Materials and services. You can expect limited budget growth to ensure continuity of core services and council bulwark. We're targeting like a 2% M&S increase. That's still less than inflation, but we're trying to keep M&S as really tight as we possibly can. Personnel. So I do think it's important that you all expect sustainable investments informed by both the organizational assessment that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but also this salary study. What I'm basically saying here is we're bargaining, and we are bargaining with a lot of data about market comps and pay equity. So I do think there will be personnel cost increases based on that. But again, I think we have done the right moves to plan and prepare for that so that we can be financially sustainable. And capital. So I've talked to you guys a lot at previous budget committee meetings about really changing our philosophy on capital. I would much rather underpromise and overdeliver than come back to you and say, oh, we spent 40% of our capital budget. So we're really trying to make our capital budgets a lot more realistic about what we can deliver and doing that through some evaluation criteria. And then I've already said this one, that I think we should be preparing for a larger revenue need in the FY 29 to 30 biennium. Okay.
Will the city be bargaining with just AFSCME or AFSCME employees?
Great question. Just asked me. We did succeed in getting a 3-year contract with MPEA. So we're only bargaining one contract.
One in the first year and one.
Yes, that's true. Thank you. Okay, so just a little bit of like what you can expect coming forward. I know I'm starting by looking backwards in time, but we kicked off in October. Michael's team is amazing and got every division their budget spreadsheet in October. We met with Quack, we met with you. All departments' initial budgets are due by the end of this month. And then they will start meeting with finance and myself, or when I turn into a pumpkin, with finance and Joseph. They will review to see if they met those kind of targets we set for them on expenditure. They'll review their budget narrative and their performance measures. On December 2nd, I should also share we're having an executive session with council to talk about bargaining. So just know that's on your forecaster. We will continue those meetings between finance and division managers in January. Our CIP should be wrapped up in January, and we're going to set our bargaining schedule in January. Next slide.
I just wanted to say kudos to library, who has already done all of its budget and is done.
He's the star student.
Yep.
Next time you guys all see Michael, it will be February 9th. That's going to be our budget committee meeting focused on that, again, the CIP and utility rates. Pencils down for our budget is in February, and we start bargaining then in February. We prepare the budget book, keep bargaining, talk about the fee schedule updates, and then we hope to conclude bargaining in April. Always the optimist. It's going to be great. Hey, look, I'm back in April, so I'll finalize the city manager's budget message, and then we will start our Saturday budget hearings with you all on April 25th. That's the short one, where we give you the book and we say hi and tell you the high level stuff. And then May 2nd is the big one, where you hear from all the department heads who explain their budget. If needed, we haven't needed it in the last several years, we will have a third hearing on May 9th. And then if you guys say, council, we recommend you adopt this budget, it's adopted in June. That's our glide path. That is what we have today for budget kickoff. Before I move into budget adjustment request, does anyone have questions, concerns, songs and dances? I do just want to again say, I mean, it's been such a pleasure working with Michael since we were thrown into the fire January of 2024. But just he's an exceptional leader, and I feel so good about Michael and the finance team and how organized they are around this budget process. So I think it's going to be really smooth.
You started by thanking all of us for the work we've done around the budget, but you all honestly have been doing the heavy lifting. This is so impressive. And I just have to say, Michael, the budget process that you were developing really is the envy of other cities. So great work.
Okay. So, to kind of have a slightly awkward segue, we just talked to you all about how we're working on our new budget. And yet I am here asking for a budget adjustment. And I just want to name the elephant in the room that that's a little bit strange and not entirely a common occurrence for the city of Milwaukee, where we are scrappy and lean and don't often ask for a lot of new resources. But you can go to the next slide. I hope none of this is a surprise. I've tried to kind of drop the breadcrumbs as we've gone through the last several quarters, both on our organizational assessment and our public safety fee, that there were some spotlights being shown to me on places in our organization where I do feel we are too thin for the services you expect from us. So again, just a reminder, we conducted an organizational assessment from January to July. At the last budget committee meeting, I hit you with a ton of slides and org charts, and I will resend those out. Thank you, Mary asked, for visual learners, it's helpful to see how things have changed over time. The impetus behind that was, I was new in the city manager chair, and I wanted to assess across the organization where are some structural or process pain points. I think we do exceptional work in the city of Milwaukee, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't hear, you can't keep doing this, as Leslie said. I can't keep maintaining 160 stormwater facilities all by myself. So we did that whole organizational scan. We made some adjustments to our org chart, some big ones you might remember. We moved capital engineering out to public works. It's been a huge success. This month, we're moving code enforcement into community development. So some things just to clean up how we all report and make it a little more efficient. We also did some updates to job classes and titles. So if I found someone whose job was like, you are not doing what it says you're doing on paper, we cleaned that up, and HR has been wonderful at moving all of that through. And then the biggie, the assessment identified 13 new positions that I feel are needed to shore up some critical gaps in our org chart. Now, this note at the bottom is really important. I had this big disclaimer slide when I showed it to you, when I showed it to my staff. I was not promising 13 new FTE because I can't promise that. That's something you have to authorize. And I said, we're going to prioritize that through the usual budget process. Well, this is me starting to do that. This, quarterly budget adjustments is one way that I can come and make these asks. And so that is what I'm here to do today. Next slide. Michael's ever the financial historian. So he wanted to fact check me when I said, I don't think we've really increased our FTE in a long time. And this shows it. So this is the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And you'll see in FY19, we had a FTE of 150.46. And that we're going to end this fiscal year with 149.25 if you don't approve what I'm asking for today. And I just bring that up because, I think if you think of how Milwaukee's changed in those 8 years, it's pretty substantially. Some really new big goals, new comprehensive plan, new climate action plan, lots of new system plans, and just lots of really big ambitions, which is so great. But we've been doing it with the same amount of resources in terms of staff. So I'm asking you today for your thoughts and approval to advance the recruitment on, and I'm sorry, that should say 8. It's 7 new positions, but it's 2 of one of the positions identified in the organizational assessment. It's 8 FTE. It's 7 positions, but I'm asking for 2 police officers. So it's 8 FTE in 7 positions. Why do this now? Emma, why not wait until the new budget? It's a very fair question. The first is that these needs, I think, are critical. I am concerned that if I don't fill these now, that I actually will start seeing some service impacts because of all the things we're trying to balance. Waiting to hire, I guess, is a risk, is what I should say. We can do it and we can find a way to make it work, but it would not be fair, I think, to the staff in these teams if I didn't daylight this and make the ask now and see what you thought. I've again fact-checked myself, and thank you, William Johnson kind of asked us to do this. We looked at actual hours worked. So that's not just your budgeted hours, but that's your comp time and your overtime when folks are showing up over their 40 hours to do work. And lo and behold, it's police, it's water, and it's stormwater where I'm seeing those highest utilization of comp time and overtime to get the basic work done. And those are some core service places, right? Fixing pipes so we get good drinking water, making sure, our roads aren't flooding from stormwater issues, and keeping our streets safe. So these 7 positions, 8 FTE. The other reason I'm here asking for them is this guy wouldn't let me if he didn't know we have the sustainable funding to do it. This isn't gosh, I really hope it'll work. This is, we feel very confident that these are sustainably funded positions. I will say that the forecast I just showed you that Michael and I put up there includes all of these. So again, I told you it's everything in the kitchen sink. I threw them all in.
It includes these 8 FTE. It doesn't include the 13 new.
It actually does. It includes the whole enchilada.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go through what they are. So the first slide is showing you the positions that are made possible by the public safety fee. Again, my hope is none of this is a surprise. It was pretty transparent, I think, when we asked for the fee. We would like to move to hire a behavioral health specialist. We would like to hire 2 patrol officers. We'd like to hire a library assistant. And this one, I just want to be transparent. It's 1 FTE. We might actually split that out split the hours. So we actually make a couple part-time people full-time and then still add another part-time person. But it would be a 40-hour addition of library assistant time and then add a deputy court clerk. I put more of this in your staff report, but just to kind of reiterate the why, we have behavioral health needs 24/7, 7 days a week. And I have one Glenn and he works Monday through Thursday. So this would allow us to have another person who could work some more night and weekend hours to support behavioral health needs that are absolutely not going anywhere. Patrol officers, we've seen calls for service up 20% since 2020, and I haven't increased patrol staffing at all, and overtime utilization continues to be very high. So the addition of these 2 positions, we feel both will help stabilize that and bring overtime costs down. Our library is a part of our safety continuum of care. We have safety incidents there every day, including today. And so having staff in the building is really important for patron safety and for staff safety. And then our court volumes are back up to pre-COVID levels, and we reduced FTE during COVID in the court. We have not replaced that. I really need another person there to make sure our court dockets keep getting processed. These, again, all covered by the public safety fee. The public safety fee, we estimate, will bring in $866,000 a year. So we feel these will all be covered by that fee. For visuals, I'm just gonna walk through a couple that show you everything in white is a currently budgeted position. And then everything in blue is what I'm asking for. So in public safety, adding 2 new proposed police officers and 1 new behavioral health specialist. Library, 1 new proposed library assistant. And in administrative services, where our court is found, that'd be our deputy court clerk. So those are the public safety fee ones. And then I have 3 in public works. These are made possible not by public safety dollars, but by deferred, rescoped, or unneeded capital projects. This is, if I had thought better and made a more realistic capital budget last time, I think that we need more operations and maintenance than we do capital dollars in these places. The first one, an admin specialist for CIP engineering. I've moved all the CIP engineers out to public works. They do amazing work and they have no admin support. And that means, they are paying invoices. They are writing updates for the public. They are doing all email communication with people who submit spot proposals. They're doing all of that. And it's, frankly, it's harming us, I think, as a program without having a good administrative specialist to keep that supported. Natural resource technician, this would be, as Leslie well teed me up, this is the second person to help maintain those 160 rain gardens that I have 1 guy maintaining all year. And then the water utility technician, water is second only to police in overtime and comp time usage. When a water pipe bursts, we are out there fixing it. But we've got a really lean staff and they're tired and overworked. So you see how those would all be funded. The general fund one, I just want to note, would be offset by transfers from the utility funds. Michael, as well as Peter and Jen, who oversee our CIP, are absolutely confident we can afford these. You can see in the footnotes at the bottom, we are going to save over $370,000 in stormwater expenses and over 1.1 million in water expenses just in this biennium. And going forward, we're going to be a lot more realistic in our budgeting. So we feel these are very sustainable investments to make. Okay, again, just showing you in public works where these would fall. A new water distribution tech, a new natural resources tech, and a new admin specialist supporting CIP. All righty. If approved, if you said yes today, what would I do? I would bring a resolution to the council on November 18th asking for the official authorization, and then we would get going. The highest priority ones for me to hire are the behavioral health specialist, the admin, the natural resources tech, and the water tech. The library assistant, the patrol would come in February. Patrol officers will move as fast as we possibly can. They are hard to hire, and then they often have to go to the academy. So as soon as we can start those, the better. And the deputy court clerk, I'd like to get in there by March. That brings me to my time to answer and be grilled by all your questions.
Yes. On page 2 of your report under the patrol officers, you say, or you mention using staff overtime to meet a statutory minimum. What statute is setting that minimum, and more importantly, what kind of liability is the city exposed to if we don't maintain that minimum?
It's a great question. I cannot rattle off the ORS off the top of my head. But what I've been told and what I believe is that we are required, based on our size, to have a sergeant and 2 patrol officers at all times on duty. In terms of the liability, if we don't meet that, another great question that I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer right now and tell you, but we can absolutely follow up and get that back to you. But yeah, it's that 3-person minimum of patrol on duty 24/7.
I know Chief Burdick has the answer, is probably trying to tell us now, but we can get that to you later this week.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
For me, I do like graphics, so I would appreciate seeing, the actual police patrol staffing broken out on days and how we do that. I think that would give me a good sense of, I have to say, I do clearly, support hiring staff rather than paying overtime. But I think that would be helpful
Absolutely.
to show what the crunch is. I will say that when I was first on the budget committee, I had some questions of the police during the budget process.
Sure.
And then Chief Jordan took me out and did a tour and stuff, but he also took me over and allowed me to see how some of that stuff operated.
Yeah.
But I don't, that's a long time ago. I'd like to
Totally.
see what it looks like.
The good news is you have an accountant running your police department. Chief Burdick has a degree in accounting, which is impressive. So he would love to show you spreadsheets and data and all sorts of stuff, and we can definitely make sure that he's able to share that information.
Mary?
Yeah. I just really support adding another behavioral specialist and police officer. So I've got a couple questions. One is the police department still working 12-hour shifts?
So this is a bummer. They, about a month and a half ago, went back to their normal shifts. And I think next week might have to go back on 12s.
Okay.
We're just not able to cut it.
Yeah, which is hard, to be as efficient as you want to be on
Yeah.
when you're working a 12-hour shift. And then with the initial set of positions being funded through the public safety fees, will there be enough fees generated to cover the positions by the time they get hired?
Yes.
We're starting the public safety fee December 1, so in their next bill, you'll see the fee on the bill.
But
It's
that will
kinda
give it enough
close,
time yeah.
But it's enough time to, I estimate most of these will be in January. I think the police one might be a couple months to hire out. It's close, but I think we can cover it. The funds are healthy enough that we can.
Yeah, we've reviewed it with our payroll specialist and he's confident.
It just seems with the number of apartments going up that increases density quite a bit. And so the police officer per capita,
You got it.
cannot be a very good, that's going down.
Yeah.
And then, with the library assistant position, that's being funded through the, public safety fees. And so but the rest of the library positions are not, they come through general fund still, right?
And public safety fee goes into general fund.
Okay, it's gonna go into general and then out to
Exactly.
these, okay.
Exactly.
And then, the contemplation of, you had mentioned you weren't sure how that was gonna be divided up.
Mhm.
But that's gonna impact the roll-up fees depending on if it's divided between
You're right.
part-time.
Yep.
10 hours versus a couple.
Very good point.
And so was that contemplated in the estimates?
Kind of like you used to be an HR director, Mary.
I can't take the hat off.
Yes, great point. The number you saw on that table is when my amazing payroll technician, Taylor, does any budget forecasting for me, he does the most expensive possible. So someone who's working full-time, has full family benefits, and it's like, again, the whole enchilada. So that's the max. I think if we were to splice it out, and I know Brent's behind me, but and do, help shore up some part-time folks to be full-time folks, then create another part-time folk, it would still remain under that max number that we put there in the estimate.
I guess I do have one other question. I'm sure you told us 4 times over, at least, that the public safety then goes into the general fund as dispersed out. But, so just the accounting and the transparency for citizens.
Yeah.
That fee is really going to public safety and not other general fund things, and how's that gonna work?
It's a great question, Mary, and it's sort of, you already heard me tonight say, you know, maybe a little bit to the chagrin of those who have to do the accounting work. We're gonna split out the tree fund and the art fund for greater transparency. I think there could be an argument to do the same for public safety. We can track every dollar, but in terms of that in and out and storytelling, setting it up as its own fund is a possibility and something we can continue to explore with you all through the budget development process. For this biennium, for the current one we're in, it's gonna go into the general fund, but we will be able to report on each of those dollars in, dollars out.
I have a comment on that, which is, I can remember a period of time when we had many funds, and it was, it added a lot of staff work, keeping track of multiple.
Is
And
Judy
so
nodding?
I'm thinking that, yeah, she's rubbing her eyes. I'm thinking that, it may be something that the city will want to, be able to assure people that it's going that way in the beginning, but I'm not necessarily thinking it needs to be a permanent separate fund. Just in terms of, it's only gonna be a small portion of the police budget.
Yeah.
And I think that the assurance needs to be there, but I'm not sure that the city needs to create lots of funds.
And I think what we could also kind of do is, you know, the interesting thing about starting this mid biennium is we could try it out for a bit. We can kind of try out some reporting strategies and techniques to kind of keep you updated. Hey, in the last quarter, we brought in this much revenue and we spent this much on these positions, and then kind of, again, follow your lead on what you'd like us to do in the actual budget document itself.
Well, that might be a good thing.
Yeah.
to do. I mean, I totally agree that people want to know that it's going for what it's being planned.
Absolutely.
But-
We know you've put a lot of trust in
Well,
us to do
and that-
this.
But it may be like, you know, we got this amount of money in, and budgets of these went up by this amount, these
Yep.
positions added this amount. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be at a granular level. I
Sure.
guess.
Yep.
And
Great
I'm
point.
just freelancing here. So I'll be quiet now.
So the first question, you mentioned that the 3 departments that have the significant amount of overtime, and it looks like you had done some work on that. I'm just curious, like, what kind of, that's a budget offset, right? Like, you know, for all intents and purposes. So I would just be curious, not going below the, I forget, statutory
Yeah.
limits or whatever. But I would just be curious what that, like, there's some sort of projection there. I've
Sure.
done a lot of business management when people are
Yeah.
used to getting overtime.
Sure.
They don't always love to let go of it.
Yes.
Even if it's better and safer for everybody,
Yeah.
including the employees. So I would just be curious with the addition of those, like,
Yes.
ensuring that, like, everybody understands the importance of it.
Yeah.
And I would be curious if there's any projections around what cost savings there might be there.
Great questions. And we have definitely had very frank conversations with Chief Burdick, who I know if he was here, he would say the same thing. You know, we understand this is, again, this is trust you're putting in us to make these decisions, and there needs to be a commensurate reduction in overtime. We have been looking at that overtime budget through a very fine tooth comb. There's a lot of things that trigger overtime, the most, critical being, there's an event we're working, or, something like, an incident that happens over a shift change. You're not going to take that officer off. But there's other stuff that we love doing that maybe isn't essential. Things like some community events that our police staff attend. And so we've really cut back and been as lean as possible, but he knows, and the whole PD leadership knows that you're watching this like a hawk and we're watching this like a hawk. In terms of the projections, I don't want to rattle off fake numbers now, but I will say again, our payroll person is just great at running those various scenarios. And if we can get this down this much, because it's 1.5 time or double time, you could really start seeing some major savings.
And then my second comment was just kind of on about the, like the safety fee, I think it could be really important to have a green, not to
Yeah.
to disagree, but just mostly because I know that we've talked about, or like when we were talking about that fee, the city council had voted on something that was kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And we're talking about increasing, I mean, wages going up, benefits
Yeah.
going up, all of that stuff. So I think it could be beneficial to provide something that's really granular, because if there is a need to increase that fee, there's all that transparent data that, you know, like people would understand why.
Yeah.
And the other way too, like if we've met the need and we have a bunch of left over, it's like, is there an opportunity to reduce that?
Sure.
I don't know if that would happen, but you know.
Yeah.
People want to know if they can, if that's going to be there.
It's a great point, Carrie. Thanks. Sophie?
All right, are there any open positions in the police department right now?
That's a great question. I think we might have a police officer open currently.
Mhm.
And so this would just allow us to hire additional there.
Mhm. Okay, cool.
It's hard to hire for police because there's a lot of background going towards it, and there's a lot of training going towards it. So if we open this on day one, I mean, you don't see the bearing of the fruit for 18 months of it.
Yeah,
And to the point Gary made about the management piece here, I don't want just anyone. I'm not looking for bodies. I'm looking for officers who meet our high standards, who follow our values, who, you know, pass through the academy with flying colors. And so it is much slower than any other recruitment we do at the city.
I think my little brother went to the police academy, so I know the rigor of the
Yeah.
background checks. He didn't finish the academy. It's better for all of us. Sorry, Wilson. He's a Marine Corps officer now. He's fine. But I think my main concern is having open positions that we can't fill.
Sure.
And earmarking that money for positions that like we could use other places.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, to that point, I think it, well, and I was like, is there a position that could potentially be flex of additional like behavioral health support? I'm sure that the police officers wouldn't mind extra support in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be something interesting if the positions couldn't be found. And I know that they did just, Chief Burdock was at one of my neighborhood association.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I know that they had recently hired a police officer from another police
Yes.
department that was coming over, so that would be,
Laterals. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Mhm.
that's really helpful.
Yep.
And
Those are the dream scenarios for
Yeah,
the
well,
police.
sure.
They're always looking for those.
and then I can't remember, I was trying to find it in the pages, I have a lot over here, but
Yeah.
I remember when I was first getting started, there were a few officers that were on administrative leave. And I was just wondering if there's been any like changes in that, or if that's going to go back to like, you know, somebody that's like back on, or
Yeah.
if there's any
Yeah.
changes.
It's a great question. Since we currently have one officer on administrative leave, when we probably last updated, this is a different person than was on administrative leave last time. And we've talked a little bit about how like I don't discuss personnel matters here, but we currently have one on administrative leave. We also have, you know, one on parental leave because they welcomed a baby. And so they are also subject to all the same life things that the rest of our staff are. We've got a couple, I think you probably all saw in the news a couple weeks ago, we had a motorcycle officer hit by a car. He is doing well, he's recovering, but he's not going to be on duty for many months. So, you know, this is the ebbs and flows of personnel staffing in the police department.
We also have another one on desk duty who he went out on medical leave. He's able to work, but he can't work his normal route too.
So he's planning our red light and speed on green program. It's great. Council President?
I'll be quick because I want to be conscious of time, but I'm curious, is this like increase in FTE included in the general fund forecast that you presented earlier?
It is.
Yeah, as she said.
And more,
13 of
the whole
positions are
13.
included in the forecast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the yin and yang that Emma spoke about was, Emma is a big thinker and I am a pencil, like, how are we gonna pay for this thing? And I think between the two of us and that, it really works out well. Sometimes I have to take a step back because she's a lot faster at seeing it than I am, but I think when she tasked me with going through this, I like to look at all scenarios. I'm fiscally conservative, so I'm trying to make sure, hey, is the revenue that we have, are we gonna meet that? And are we throwing every cost that we can imagine into this? And as she's talking about with payroll and everything too, I go with I want the fully loaded cost of what everything is. So I feel confident about it, and I think we've kind of looked at it all different ways.
He's basically saying if it reaches you, it's because he's put it through the ringer. He won't just let me bring anything.
Okay, so any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more. This is not to be like too devil's advocate-y, but what does the budget forecast look like without those 13 positions? Is it any different?
So what that means is, so if you look at the expenditure line in the forecast, you know, if you said no to these, they'd be lower and we'd be in a rosier picture. But I think what we were trying to show you is with your approval tonight, we are still confident we will keep that fund in the black for the next 5 years.
And what is the what is the plan for the other 5 positions?
That's a great question. My plan right now is to not bring you another budget adjustment, mostly because I'll be on parental leave, so I won't have time to do it. But we'll explore that through the budget process. So we're gonna, you know, as we meet with each division manager and look at their budget, we're gonna be asking, you know, make your case and let's look at what you're able to do on M&S and what you're able to do in personnel and let's also see how bargaining goes. You know, I've been very transparent with the union that I think when we go into bargaining this time, there's really 4 things we're looking at, right? There's cost of living adjustments, there's salary adjustments from the salary schedule, there's new positions, and then there's benefits. And I have my thoughts on sort of how we should prioritize those. And I'm sure they have their thoughts on how we should prioritize those. So we're gonna be kind of in a bargaining conversation about that. So the other 5 are still the 5 that I identified in this org assessment as things I think we need. And we'll see how many make it through the budget sausage making before we bring this to you.
I do have another comment. Just along the lines of, well, what happens if we don't fill these? Yes, the budget horizon looks better, but the priority around the public safety positions, budget looks better, but is public safety in Milwaukee looking as good without the position? So there's definitely a cost and benefit there. So I don't really think it's sneaky. I think it's, you know,
I wasn't trying to be sneaky.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I think I would rather have had this come before that and then, or like, here's the budget projections without this position. These
Sure.
Positions, here it is with these positions.
Sure.
Instead of like, here it is, looks good. And also it includes 13
Totally. Totally hear that. I think what I wanted to do again was, like, this is back to the yin and the yang, was show you what we would be unethical if we came and showed you like, ooh, this is like, we don't think we really could spend this, but here's like the little amount, and here's a really aggressive revenue. I'd much rather show you a really conservative revenue forecast and a really aggressive expenditure, because again, we're in the business of keeping this city financially solvent. So I promise there was no sneakiness intended. It was though just trying to kind of, again, show you what the highest cost scenario would look like to see if we can afford it.
Anyone else? I guess I just want to say that when we discussed the new fee, my understanding was that we were doing that to meet what were some fairly immediate needs in the city. So I have no problem with doing this. And I guess I understand from the way it's requested, is it listed as an action? I'm thinking that we need to have somebody move to approve it. Is that right?
I think that would be helpful for council to feel confident when they review the adjustment next Tuesday for a vote, if they know kind of where the motion is as part of budget committee. So
Do I hear a motion on that?
I move to approve or support or recommend.
recommend.
Recommend
council.
council. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe it's unanimous. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's the last bit of business we've got.
Okay.
Or other business?
No other business. Well then, does anybody want to?
I motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second?
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay.